remember this clip? Dude, look at this. This was from 8 days ago. Okay? And look at this thing, right? Minnesota realtor claims Somalis bought 455 homes, converting them to home health care. Luxury cars like BMWs. Dude, this is 𝗙𝗙𝗃𝗍𝗆's mom. Bro. So they have, his mom is part of this thing with the crazy Mar-a-Lago face. They were distributing his mom's like anti-Somali content, right? Isn't that wild? Dude, but like nobody was saying it's his mom. Nobody was pointing out that she wasn't announcing herself as his mom. And it gets even crazier, okay? Because they were all pimping, right? And I was in here saying, where are the BMWs? Show us some of the fancy cars, right? And like, if you're saying there's a bunch of BMWs pulling up to these houses, okay, so show us one of these houses that's filled with the driveway of BMWs. I commented on this, this was Christmas Eve, right? And this preemptively, okay, this preemptively came out before 𝗙𝗙𝗃𝗍𝗆's thing. 𝗙𝗙𝗃𝗍𝗆's video came out December 26th. Okay? So his mother was running around before it announcing these like Somali, oh my God, we need to deport the Somalians. They're like, driving BMWs into these houses. She did the same shit that 𝗙𝗙𝗃𝗍𝗆 did, her son, where she stood outside something telling you this crazy story about Somalian people and the looting and the fraud. But none of what she was saying was necessarily happening behind her. Okay, now it gets crazier, guys. 𝗙𝗙𝗃𝗍𝗆 drops this post-Christmas video. 𝗙𝗙𝗃𝗍𝗆's mom is out here saying the Somalis are scamming Minnesotans of taxpayer dollars. And nobody knew who this woman was. Nobody knew this was 𝗙𝗙𝗃𝗍𝗆's mom. She wasn't announcing herself. She's got an incredible Mar-a-Lago face. But guys, 𝗙𝗙𝗃𝗍𝗆's mom was literally just in a federal lawsuit for fraud. Dude, his parents were defendants in a fraud lawsuit. They were named as defendants in a bankruptcy trustee adversary proceeding involving improper financial transfers. It was like a civil bankruptcy case back in 2018, as like the same year that the during Trump's administration when some of this Minnesota fraud started. Okay, isn't that crazy? Like, that is wild, bro. And it gets even weirder. So, to recap, we have 𝗙𝗙𝗃𝗍𝗆's mom starting off doing this. Like, obviously, she knew her son's video was coming up. So, 𝗙𝗙𝗃𝗍𝗆's mom is out there contenting this anti-Somali shit while 𝗙𝗙𝗃𝗍𝗆 is doing his video. Then he drops his video. Okay, this is something started by the Republicans in Minnesota who are trying to unseat Tim Walz. Okay, now I'm pretty sure, guys, Mike Lindell announced he was running for governor in Minnesota. Like, they knew, dude, they knew this was coming. Okay, they knew this was coming, right? Absolutely. So, 𝗙𝗙𝗃𝗍𝗆's mom on the hook for some fraud, but look at this, dude. They're from Utah, okay? He's from Utah. He's a Mormon. Now, the thing about Mormons, I'm not going to judge him based on pure Mormonism, but I will say this. Mormonism is not kind to people with dark skin colors, okay? Mormonism, there's like, in the devout Mormon world, you can't gain entrance to heaven if you're not white, okay? There is some deeply rooted racism tied into being Mormon, okay? Right? So this, for him, the pursuit of the Somalian people, it could very well be like a religious crusade. But look at this shit, though. He went to a home prom with his mom. He invited his mom to prom. He went to a home prom with his mom during the pandemic. Dude, the mom prom. Oh, shit. Dude, step aside rom-com, entering mom prom. Dude, wow. We talked about this the other day, about how Tim Walz, the one thing he's not good at is he's not really good standing in front of a camera when people are in his face saying, you're a fucking crook, right? And so now they're having a huge spectacle expressly designed to put Tim Walz right under the gun with this, right? And make this huge national spectacle, okay? Isn't that crazy? That is crazy. Now, I think because when Mike Lindell announced he was running for governor in Minnesota, everybody was like, dude, what the fuck is going on? There's no way that guy wins Minnesota, right? No way. I mean, dude, when he announced it, the first thing I said was like, oh my God, like Tim Walz automatically wins next year. Like easy, like not even competition. But here's the thing, guys. When I'm looking at this, I don't know if we'll be able to like prove all of this. But guys, this Mike Lindell, I think he ran for governor because he knew this was coming, right? I think that's why he ran. Like who knows how long they've been cooking this thing up. Because now it makes sense. Because nobody wanted Mike Lindell. Nobody thought Mike Lindell was ever like, there's no chance this guy wins. Why is he even running? And then literally a couple weeks later, this shit explodes. Like they knew this. They've been cooking this up for who knows, right? Are they that smart? Yeah, they are that smart. They are operating with the Heritage Foundation and you know, the Manhattan Institute. They have people that have been like, I mean, you guys got to understand, this isn't even about Donald Trump. Like Trump has been picked up by the Heritage Foundation and those guys. He has nothing to do with them. They've just simply grabbed Trump because he was good at like managing the voters. But the Heritage Foundation and the Manhattan Institute have spent the better part of like the last 40 years strategizing how to permanently take the U.S. government, okay? And they kicked it into high gear once Obama won, okay? This goes even back to segregation, really, because what happened, guys, if you look at it, if you go back to the 60s, the religious right, they had no problem with abortion. Okay, they didn't. They were not even anti-abortion, guys. The Southern Baptist Convention and none of the Christians in the 60s were like big anti-abortion. They weren't focused on that at all. They were exclusively about segregation. And then segregation ended, okay? Segregation ended, and they thought, oh, you know, they're going to, right then in 73, Roe versus Wade passes and abortion is legal. Now, when segregation ended, they fully expected to fight for resegregation. But you know what happened, guys? And this is going to be when I say these three words, it's going to resonate. You're going to get tingles on your arm because of what a Donald Trump has been doing. But three words happened, guys. Department of Education. Okay, that's the third word. Jimmy Carter, the Southern peanut farmer, established the Department of Education to make the federal government have the power to prevent them from resegregating schools. That's why it was created. It was created to prevent a return to segregation. And then the religious leaders, the religious think tanks or whatever were like, fuck, bro, now we're done. We have a government fucking lobby that will prevent us from resegregating the schools. And so what they did is they're like, what's our next issue going to be? And they turned to abortion. And then they became anti-abortion. And that became the thing they tested over the 70s and 80s. And then, of course, LGBTQ rights was another one. They have been working, guys, since segregation to figure out how to, like, reduce the power of people of color in America. This has been a long battle, guys. So now the Department of Education was one of the first things. That's why that was on the chopping block. And here we are. If we look at the Minnesota State House, look at that. It's 67 Republicans, 65 Democrat, okay? And there's 2 vacant. And then if we look at the Minnesota Senate is 34-33. So the Speaker of the Minnesota House of Representatives, who is the woman running for governor who started the Nick Shirley thing, they're trying to depose Tim Walz, okay? They're trying to gut Tim Walz. You know what I mean? Isn't that wild? So obviously the fraud thing's been going on for a couple of years. Now you have to wonder though, guys, has the legislature in Minnesota been fighting Tim Walz from doing things to end the fraud that was going on? Because obviously they've had fraud that they've been working on. He's been trying to deal with this his whole term. There was some fraud that started in 2018, okay? And then Tim Walz comes in and he inherited this fraud stuff, right? The fraud began before he got in office. Now, what I wonder is, did the Republican legislature go out of their way to prevent Tim Walz from taking control of this thing? And now are they going to try to sink him with it, right? I mean, dude, it's going to be very interesting because his opponents are going to this oversight committee. So now the oversight committee, these hearings are going to be an attempt to sink Tim Walz to try and get Mike Lindell in there in Minnesota. Isn't that crazy? What is up, guys? Thank you so much for watching. You like the video, you want to support independent resistance media, you know what to do. Drop that sub, hit the like button, and please share it. And we do love our members, so if you want to become a member, it's another really great way to support. Thanks again for everything, guys. I'll see you next time. Let's go.